Trigger was a 15.3-ounce palomino horse made famous in American Western films with his owner and rider, cowboy star Roy Rogers. Pedigree. Trigger was born in San Diego, California. Though often mistaken for a Tennessee walking horse, his sire was a thoroughbred and his dam a great mare who, like Trigger, was a palomino. Movie director William Whitney, who directed Roy and Trigger in many of their movies, claimed a slightly different lineage, that his sire was a registered palomino stallion, though no known palomino registry existed at the time of Trigger's birth, and his dam was by a thoroughbred and out of a cold-blood mare. Horses other than Golden Cloud also portrayed Trigger over the years, none of which was related to Golden Cloud, the two most prominent of which were palominos known as Little Trigger, and Trigger Jr. Though Trigger remained a stallion his entire life, he was never bred and has no descendants. On the other hand, Roy Rogers used Trigger Jr./Allen's Golden Zephyr at stud for many years, and the horse named Triggerson that actor Val Kilmer led on stage as a tribute to Rogers and his cowboy peers during the Academy Awards show in March 1999 was reportedly a grandson of Trigger Jr. Film career. Golden Cloud made an early appearance as the mount of Maid Marian, played by Olivia de Havilland in The Adventures of Robin Hood. A short while later, when Roy Rogers was preparing to make his first movie in a starring role, he was offered a choice of 5 rented movie horses to ride and chose Golden Cloud. Rogers bought him eventually in 1943 and renamed him Trigger for his quickness of both foot and mind. Trigger learned 150 trick cues and could walk 50 feet on his hind legs. They were said to have run out of places to cue Trigger. Trigger was ridden by Rogers in many of his motion pictures, becoming much loved by the youthful audience that saw him on film and in Rogers' 1950s television series with his wife Dale Evans, who rode her trusty buckskin quarter horse Buttermilk. Trigger became the most famous horse in film entertainment, even having his own Dell comic book recounting his exploits. Roy Rogers made many personal appearances with Trigger in tow. More than once Rogers escorted Trigger up 3 to 4 flights of stairs at hospitals to visit with sick children, according to his autobiography Happy Trail. Death and legacy. After the original Trigger died in 1965 at Rogers' Hidden Hills, California ranch, Rogers arranged for Everett Wilkinson of Biscoff's Taxidermy in Los Angeles, California to preserve Mount the horse. The hide was professionally stretched over a foam likeness of Trigger, and the resulting mount was put on display in the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Museum when it opened in Apple Valley, California in 1967. The mount was later moved with the museum to first Victorville, California in 1976, and then to Branson, Missouri in 2003. At some point, a 24-foot replica of a rearing Trigger was produced to sit atop the Roy Rogers Museum in Victorville. The 1,300-pound replica could be seen from the freeway and served as a landmark until the museum closed and moved to Branson. When the fiberglass replica of Trigger was being made, Rogers was approached by the owners of the Denver Broncos. Rogers allowed another statue to be made and then broke the mold. Bucky the Bronco, Trigger's twin, stands above the south scoreboard of the Denver Broncos Stadium. After the closing of the Victorville Museum in 2009, its contents were placed at public auction on July 14, €15, 2010, at Christie's Auction House in New York City. Trigger's preserved taxidermy remains sold for $266,500 to television channel FDTV, which plans to start a Western museum. Bob Tinsley, a Victorville developer who had built Roy Rogers' home in nearby Apple Valley, bought the fiberglass replica in April 2010. Tinsley's plan is to make the statue a part of historic Apple Valley Village. He explained, "I just couldn't see letting him go anywhere else." Selected filmography: The Adventures of Robin Hood, San Fernando Valley, Lake Placid Serenade, Don't Fence Me In, Along the Navajo Trail, My Pal Trigger, Melody Time, The Golden Stallion, Son of Pale Face. See also, Buttermilk, Wonder Horses. References, citations. Bibliography. External links: Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Museum, Trigger at the Internet Movie Database, Trigger at Find a Grave, auction information at Christie's.